Infrastructure asset insurance, getting through this, page 23, Mr. Adey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, just to recap, I did bring this to, I think it was the Environment and Services Committee. Yes, that's what it says. And Council said no. I think the view was that Council should make the decision. At the time of writing this report, which was Wednesday last week, I still had ongoing conversations to be had with various insurance companies. So, and they have progressed since that time. So the issue here is that the local government or local authority protection program has been in place since the early 90s. At that time, it was a very smart initiative because at that time, councils or local government were unable to get insurance for otherwise uninsurable assets, as they were called in those days. And the local authority protection program picked up that gap and filled that gap admirably. And had it not been for the Christchurch earthquake, would still be presumably the preferred insurer for a lot of local authorities. Unfortunately, the Canterbury earthquake showed that probably the time of the local authority protection program, there were significant risks around a mutual type agreement. And in the meantime, the commercial insurers have filled the gap that LAP at the time, there was that gap that LAP filled in the early 90s when no other insurance companies filled it. So we have now got quotations from LAP plus two insurers through two brokers. And so the recommendation is LAP is obviously significantly expensive. It still has some risks around a major disaster covering New Zealand or even Hawke's Bay. If there is more than one local authority member within Hawke's Bay, then LAP's ability to cover both disasters to the level that we are considering is our risk exposure, they are unlikely to be able to do that in the current environment. And therefore I'm recommending that Council withdraws from LAP and takes out insurance through the commercial market. Now I have two quotes there. One is slightly more than the other. But there is still some uncertainty around exactly what each are prepared to insure. And I would say that JLT have made it very clear to me that in their view, replacing assets or the insurance payout would be to replace assets that are there, whereas Aon is very clear that they would replace assets to a modern day standard. And therefore I am in a position now to recommend very strongly that we take or we accept the Aon quotation for a 2-year period. But that's not to say that once we've done that, that's it. There is some further work to be done in terms of pulling together a bit of a dossier to explain exactly what we are asking for insurance. The Aon people went to London and sat down with the reinsurers and the Lloyd's of London, the other big organisations, and explained exactly what we were looking to do. I'd given them some information to assist them with that conversation. I think it's appropriate that we provide a lot more information in the future and have discussed that with Aon, and they are comfortable to work through that process. So it is an ongoing, it is an ongoing conversation that we need to have with the insurers, but at this stage, we do need to inform or to accept an insurance cover that is going to cover us for at least the next financial year. My recommendation is that we take Aon's cover or proposal and cover ourselves for the next 2 years, but in the meantime we have ongoing we develop our information so that we can fully inform the market about what we want to cover for the next round. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. So are you looking for a change to recommendation 3 then, Mike? Are you ready now to recommend Aon as our preferred insurer?
I am ready to recommend Aon as our preferred insurer, yes, which I wasn't at the time of writing this paper, yeah.
Okay, so we'll need to modify this recommendation then when we come to...
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. And coming down to a comparison, the two you did raise with JLT, that it was not clear whether they were going to protect live edge protection. You don't say with Aon if it is clear. Yes. So can you give us that assurance, because that was the whole start of our turning to LAP in the first place.
With Aon it is certainly clear. With JLT they have come back and confirmed that yes, they will cover the live tree edge protection as an integral part of any flood control scheme, but there is still the issue about whether or not they cover sort of modern day replacement value. Yes, they have agreed to that. Yeah.
Councillor Pipe.
Yeah, Mike, I'm just interested in the table on the front page of your report with regards to the various scenarios and the estimated, the loss estimate that you put there. How did you work those out? And I just want to know about, with the earthquake scenarios, whether the costs there were built in, because with an earthquake, particularly of some magnitude, there is very likely to be a tsunami that might follow. So did you include the two? You've separated them out? What's the story there?
The significant risk is for an earthquake centred on the Heretaunga Plains, which is unlikely to cause a tsunami. So I think we need to deal with one at a time. This was a fairly in-depth study by Aon and who also consultants Tonkin and Taylor, who went through all of the potential scenarios. The reason for the high loss value in an earthquake scenario is because of your lateral spread of either stop banks or drains and the need to reinstate those. So yeah, so that's the basis for that. In the past, our significant or maximum probable loss has been based on a major flood. So this was an interesting assessment that sort of changed from that, and highlighted the risks around that.
To follow up, in the light of Christchurch, was that taken into account here? Are you quite happy with these figures in the light of what you've seen down there?
Yes, yes. It's not an exact science. It is a very difficult scenario to provide an estimate, and hence the low, medium, high. But it was very pleasing that I suppose the premium I thought was more than reasonable for that level of loss.
Councillor Hewitt.
Thanks, Mike. I know you've spent a lot of time on this because we've been discussing it for a couple of years almost. I tend to look in insurance policies for the fish hooks, and so I need your assurance that you are happy with any potential fish hooks that are in there, that we're covered. And I look at the words on number 7, concluded that a maximum concluded earthquake event. And I kind of think, what's a maximum concluded earthquake event? And is that a fish hook, or are you happy still? Because earthquakes often come more than just one bang, don't they? And with the likes of Christchurch, the rattling continued for a long time, causing ongoing damage. Yes.
Sorry, I think concluded in the middle there is probably the wrong word, so that's a typo, and I can't think of what it should be. just be aware that these insurance covers, they cover you for 2 separate events in any one year. And so with Christchurch, or Canterbury, they had the Darfield earthquake, and then they had the Christchurch earthquake, and then because they were covered by LAP at the time, LAP wrote to us and said, you have no more insurance for the rest of that year. That is still a risk to us, to that you have more than 2 events, but we are covered for 2 independent significant events, and an event is considered within a 72-hour window, is my understanding. So a flood event that carries on over a week, you are probably they'll probably consider that as one event, but if you get a double peak flood event that's a week long, you might find that they consider that as 2. So there's quite a lot of issue that I think we need to tie down, and that's the reason why I think a better sort of a clear dossier, setting out our risks, setting out our assets, setting out what we want to cover, providing that to the insurance industry. That will provide us a lot more certainty than we've got now. But in saying that, I have been through the small print of the contract, and we have agreed to a number of changes with Aon that will make sure that we are covered for maximum, well, not maximum, modern day equivalent replacement. Yeah. So yes, and they did advise me that there was an event, I can't remember where it was, but where in actual fact the insurance company did honour that modern day equivalent replacement. So I think there's room for more clarification, but I believe we've got a reasonably secure agreement at this stage. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't areas of assets that we still need to understand that they are not covered, and another sawfly event would not be covered. And I can't get any insurance for that sort of thing. So there are still risks that we need to handle.
Further questions? Councillor Scott.
Just clarity around the inclusion or not inclusion of pumps, because in the paper to the Environment and Services Committee, you specifically recommend it and say they are and they're not. I think there's a typo in there. They are not. Is that?
That is correct. Sorry,
reading?
they are not.
Yeah.
They are considered fixed assets. The conversation I'm having with insurance companies is I want to ensure functionality. So if we end up with an undamaged pump station at the wrong end of a drain because the land has done this, what happens? And I would like, you know, that's an area that is still a little bit grey. We need to ensure functionality, and so that's an area that needs to be worked through.
Councillor Pipe.
Mike, just as a matter of interest, in that table you've got volcano, and the damage to the assets, would that be just mainly to do with the machinery, would it?
Yeah, largely. I mean, there is risk of in a major event of volcanic ash needing to be cleaned out from various areas, but the real potential is for your electrical equipment, yes.
Councillor Bevan.
Chair, I'm ready to go to the recommendations if there are no further questions.
Well, I do have further questions.
Further question, Councillor Scott.
Just clarification around this ensuring functionality. Are you actually putting a proviso on your recommendation with Aon of sorting out the last details?
Oh yes, they are keen to continue to converse with us. Obviously, they are well established in New Zealand. They are ensuring.
I know that. I just want to know you're not quite hard and fast yet with what you're agreeing with them.
No, I think I've got to a point where I'm happy to commit. But not to say that there is not quite a lot more room for
Just
further.
really wanting to get some
Yeah.
guidance on what wording should be there, and what
Yeah.
powers we need to delegate,
Yeah.
other than just approving them as the insurer.
Can I suggest, what I would like to agree with Aon is that we agree to the 2-year term, but subject to further confirmation of assets insured covering the second year. So, and that's how I would like to work it. If you're happy with that sort of recommendation, that's fine.
We get that?
Yeah.
Can we, well,
So-
you were
so-
happy,
So
you
the
were,
wording that I'm proposing would give the space to enable the staff
okay,
to.
so
to
do you want,
that. So-
do you want to move then, councillor Bevan? Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to
Please.
move, Chair. 1 and 2 not changed, but 3 changed as follows. Delegates to the CE to finalise details of appropriate cover and enter into an infrastructure insurance contract with Aon. I'll read it again, Leanne. Delegates to the CEO to finalise details of appropriate cover and enter into an infrastructure insurance contract with Aon.
And that's it. Oh, sorry, and that's it, so the rest goes, okay. You able to put that up?
Yes, but is it just for 1 year or?
So that the 1 year or 2 year,
Well, that's, I'm leaving that to staff. I think
Great,
we should
okay, cool.
delegate that,
yep, that's fine.
that discretion.
So shall we get that up on the, what you call? Well, let's see, we've got a seconder first, maybe. Someone happy to second that? You happy to second that? Thanks, councillor Scott. Right, well, while it's going up, do you wish to speak?
Yes, just briefly, there's 2 things that have happened that have got us to where we are. The first, of course, is the earthquake in Christchurch, which has denuded LAP really of its reserves, and that's changed the ballpark significantly. And the second thing, of course, that's happened is that commercial insurers have stepped into the space, and that gives us an opportunity to find alternative cover. I'm satisfied that Mike's done a significant amount of work on this and is giving us good advice, and I'm happy to delegate to staff the responsibility to finalise those arrangements.
Thank you. Seconder, you wish to speak?
Yes, I think I'm really sad to see LAP disappearing. I think it has filled a gap. It has served some councils very well, and I certainly think that there are a number of councils now leaving it. Probably will spell the end of what is, you know, a good philosophy on mutual protection. However, I do go back to when we were exposed with the shock of the sawfly and our infrastructure suddenly going from 100-year protection to a probably 1 year or 2 year protection at the most. And certainly it's really important that we are adequately covered. We do know that post Christchurch, these insurance companies didn't want to have a bar of anything to do with New Zealand, accepted an extraordinary high price. So it is interesting that they're back in the market again trying to offer you deals. We just hope that that should it be required, that it really is as sound as we can get. But I certainly support the move, but I'm sorry to see I do think it'll probably start, like other councils like us, will spill the end of that.
Point of order, Chair. It's not quite right. It really should finish at the word Aon. That balance should be removed. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's correct.
So that's there, people can understand that. Other speakers? No one else wishes to speak? You wish to sum up, councillor Bevan? You happy? So everyone understands that that's what we're voting on? I'll put the motion, and all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mr.